Hello and welcome back to the Naked Expat channel. I'm inside again doing one of my monologues because some people have said, oh, why aren't you outside in your garden? There's a lovely garden under the guava tree, the yellow guava. Well, it is lovely and I will do more vlogs, more videos outside, but it's very thundery at the moment. I think rain is due and it's been very wet. I've cut the grass recently. I'm very lucky where I am because I enjoy birdsong. I wake up to the tweeting of the birds. And it's relatively nice and peaceful, even though it's a subdivision. But we're coming into rainy season now, so most days we get a little bit of rain now, and I can hear thunder in the distance. So I'm inside, and so whilst I say that, is I'm inside, and somebody commented that they loved my sofa, and where did I get it? And other people just said, I really love your video, but your sofa's really off-putting, it's very distracting. And I do apologise for that. If you bear with me a second, I'm just going to go and turn the lights on because as I said, it might rain shortly. I can hear thunder and lightning. All of a sudden, it's gone really dark. So I'm going to put on one of the lights. Right, there we go. I'm back. Hopefully, that's not too distracting. It's certainly a little bit more brighter for me. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face, unfortunately. Now, where was I? Right, okay, the sofa. Well, I rent this property. I don't own it. And it's actually owned by a Filipino and a very elderly Australian man. One of the things that the chap said to me was, and the house came semi-furnished. I've made some additions, obviously. But he did say, oh, can you just leave the furniture as it is and not mess around with it? And I'm like, yeah, sure, you know, gentleman's agreement. However, the sofa is terrible. This is just a throw, it's just a cover. I saw this online and thought, oh, that's nice. I've always been a great fan of Warhol, pop art, Liechtenstein, Haring. He did, like, you know, the dancing people and everything else. And I loved that. And I saw this throw and thought that'll be great. I can cover the sofa like that. But I must admit to the people that have commented a bit about it being a little bit wild. Yeah, it's a little bit wild. And I can see it being a bit distracting. I might try reversing it actually because it's darker. But in the interim, it's quite good fun. And I was looking at it before I turned on the video actually. And I thought actually it's quite poignant really. Because when you think about it, this looks like a very happy expat, maybe a Westerner, going to Asia. And like, way, big smile on his face, going to Thailand, land of smiles, or happy going to meet his girlfriend, or going to go and look for one in the Philippines. He looks like he's already just got to Asia and it's party, you know, and he's having a fantastic time. This chap here looks like he's celebrating the fact that he's found his girlfriend. This one here looks like the girlfriend, yeah? So he's celebrating and then she's pregnant, which is kind of a bit, I'm going to tell you what, if Elton John was here, he'd probably be singing The Circle of Life. Definitely the circle of an expat life, you know, so I've not noticed that before. And he looks dead. Maybe that's the other end of life, you know. But that's quite funny. He's dancing, celebrating he found a lovely girlfriend. I don't know what that is. That definitely looks like a pregnant Asian to me. Oh dear, that's quite funny. Anyway, I digress. I've noticed my YouTube channel is in its embryonic stage. I've only been doing it for a couple of weeks, and I'm really grateful for the vast majority of comments on my videos that have been positive, inspiring, saying that some of the things that I say are refreshing. I don't know everything. All I do, and when you start a YouTube, I didn't start a YouTube channel because I never thought I had anything unique to say and people should have a USP, unique selling point. And I'm like, well, I'm no different, I'm not special, you know. And guys out there, I don't think I'm special at all. But you got to come from some sort of angle. You got to have a niche, or if you're American, you say niche. Oh, it's like nails down a blackboard to me. That is, you got to have a niche. It's niche, okay? It's French. I think it's French. So you've got to have a niche. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not so special. And then I had a comment given to me by an ex-girlfriend of mine, Liz, who lives in the UK. And Liz is married now with a family. And she said to me, my name's Andrew. She said to me, well, Andrew, hang on a minute. What do you mean you haven't got a unique selling point? My God, you're living the dream. You left England when you were 39 and retired and went to Asia. And you've been in Asia as your home ever since. Well, that's fantastic. Not many people ever do that. And that got me thinking, actually, hang on a minute. Yeah, I suppose she is right. You know, not many people do retire that early. Not many there are digital nomads that work abroad from a young age. Fantastic. I'm a generation older than that. So the new digital, and I'm a bit too old for like the digital nomads, but I do get them because I'm sort of on the cusp. And I can understand that there are a lot of opportunities for younger people in their 20s and 30s, digital nomads, going away, teaching English as a foreign language, working online businesses, affiliate marketing, everything else. Yeah, you know, all of that market is opened up and it's fantastic. A digital nomads, if you're watching this, do take on board some of my advice from my experience, because we're all in it to cover each other's ass. I know that some expats out there, if I do say something that's a little bit controversial and you don't agree with it, fine. But please, you know, be civilized. There's no need to get all itchy finger with the keyboard as a keyboard warrior and think that I'm talking absolute rubbish. I won't say anything on YouTube that I personally think is wrong. If you convince me that I'm wrong or that there's a very valid alternative, I'm all ears. You know, I was taught by my life coach and my mother and my grandma. You know, I got two of these, I got one of those. Use them in that proportion. So listen more, observe more, and shut up sometimes. Use your mouth less. Yeah, very difficult to do on YouTube because I'm sure you want to hear me. I'd like to think you would. Anyhow, yeah, I don't want to be controversial. That is not my objective. My objective, after listening to a lot of other YouTubers and information that's written by other expats online that I fundamentally disagree with. And like MTV said years ago, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So if I don't say anything, I can't help or instill change. Now, I'm not looking to change the world. All I'm looking to do is if I can help one expat cover his backside and save him from a lot of financial or emotional ruin. And I've seen for myself, I've been in condos living in Thailand and I've seen foreigners hung from fans committed suicide because they've run out of money, they've had their heart broken, they've lost everything, they've lost their home or anything else. I've seen foreigners that clearly should not be expats because they have bipolar or psychological issues, go into places like Thailand and the Philippines where there isn't a support structure and then starting to drink heavy. And that's a recipe for disaster because that's like putting a naked flame to a fuse. And these guys get in a terrible state. Some of them wake up, they forget where they are, they forget who they are. I know people in Thailand. I was in Thailand once. I'm not proud of this. I got caught drink driving in Nuklua, north of Pattaya, and I was thrown in the monkey house in Pattaya. So I was in Pattaya jail on between Beach Road and Second Road in Soi 9, and I was in there for a long weekend from Monday until we went to court from Friday when I was caught and arrested. I was just unlucky. They were having a bit of a splurge. And I was in jail until I think it was the following Tuesday. We had to go to the provincial court down in Jomtien. And we all got fined 30,000 peso and 30 days. And I'm like, what? I'll be in jail for 30 days. Not a prison, but the jail for 30 days. Now, that was a scare tactic because I was caught between Christmas and New Year. No, I shouldn't have been drinking. Yeah, I was over the limit, you know, riding my PCX around. But it was scary. So yeah, I have been in a Thai jail. And, you know, you got to sleep with one eye open because I had a lady boy led next to me who was becoming increasingly friendly and touchy-feely. And thankfully, there was a young little Thai guy that had been arrested for selling, I think it's shabu or yaba, what they call shabu or yaba. Anyways, crystal meth, yeah? I think they call it shabu in the Philippines and they call it yaba in Thailand, which is kind of same but different. Anyway, being caught, and you know, he was in jail waiting to go to a more senior court in Bangkok. So his long-term future, I do not know, but he was a lovely young lad, and he spoke a bit of English and a bit of Thai. I can speak a bit of Thai, so I sort of got by with him. And thankfully, one of my friends, very long-term friend of mine who had a bar in Soi 8, he came to see me, and he was coming to see me a few times every day with food and, you know, some cigarettes and stuff. I smoked at the time, and cigarettes are like barter currency anyway in a jail. And I got by, and this young lad, when I got out, because we were able to pay the chief of police a little bit of a bribe. So look, I know we got fined 30,000 peso, but instead of it, there's 30,000 peso fine, and can I go out early, please? And they're like, well, okay, we'll give you your passport back, but it's going to cost you about another 20,000 baht. Happy to pay that. 20,000 baht or another 30 days in a Thai jail. No brainer. So I got out and I went back over the next couple of weeks before this young lad, this Thai lad, got carted off to Bangkok for his main hearing. I was giving him a little bit of money and stuff like that. And the chief of police that was in Pattaya police station said to me, stop doing that, because as soon as you start giving him money, he's going to be a victim for other people that are in the jail. So I learnt my lesson there. I was trying to do something nice, and he said, actually, you're not doing him any favours at all. Why do I mention this? Because 3 jail cells down, and bearing in mind, we only had a tiny little hole to crap in with half a bit of a wall to have a pee, number 1s and number 2s in the corner. Everybody could see you, and literally no air conditioning, little small tiny window at the top. You could almost see what's going on. You could almost hear what's going on Beach Road in Soi 9, but you didn't have any vision at all. And literally we were led like sardines. And in this cell there was about 35 of us. Of that, there was about 15 foreigners. We were all in there for the same reason. We got caught drink driving. Really unfortunate. I mean, talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But anyway, 3 cells down was a foreigner. And nobody knew who he was. Nobody had come to claim him. Nobody had put in like a request for missing persons. Nobody knew where he was European, British, Australian, American. He was apparently, the investigative journalist, is it Richard Drummond, eventually got to the bottom of it. And he was an American guy, but he'd had a stroke. He'd had a serious stroke and he couldn't talk. So you couldn't really tell what his accent was. He was permanently paralysed down one side of his face, spoke like he was drunk, and nobody could ascertain his accent. So they didn't know if he was Australian or German or British or American. It turned out that he was American and he'd had a massive stroke. And the police, because there was no food or water or anything, the police used to give a little bit of water and just a little bit of scraps to him. And occasionally he could manage to feed himself, occasionally not. And when the story, like Richard Drummond managed to eventually extract, and he was rescued by the Australian consulate, the American consulate, who came and helped him out, finally got him extradited and back to the US for care. When he went, and you saw pictures of him, this guy was massive. He was ex-military, he's like 19 stone. And this guy was skin and bones, left in a cell. And nobody knew about him. Nobody could give a monkeys. I didn't even know he was there, but he was there at the same time as me. And I did think, guilty as charged, this guy was just drunk. He was just like some sort of dumbass expat drunk in the corner. Now, of course, a huge amount of guilt. Think, my God, that man had no help whatsoever. Anyway, that's just something I tell you. What's good about being an expat? Well, some people say, well, if you seem a little bit bitter, you seem a little bit angry. I'm not. I'm passionate. I'm being passionate. I love cooking. I love food. I love nutrition. I love fitness. I'm passionate about architecture. That's why I lived in Eastern Europe. I love the architecture around Russia, Ukraine. I used to love going to the Hermitage in St. Petersburg. It's fantastic. If you don't know the Hermitage, there's a famous saying that because most of the exhibits in the Hermitage are in the basement and they can only show a bit of a selection at any one time, including the statue of David, which you can actually go and touch. It's a priceless artifact. You can touch the thing. Amazing. Or you certainly could when I was there. But all of the exhibits are in the basement, and apparently if you spent just 1 minute looking at each exhibit, the Hermitage is so big, it's such a vast collection. Obviously, it was accumulated behind the Iron Curtain. It would take you 67 years with no sleep, no stop for food or rest or anything else. 1 minute, checking each exhibit, it would take you 67 years to look at everything. That's how huge it is. And I think the Hermitage is about 1 kilometre from one end of the block to the other end of the block. It's huge. The architecture is beautiful. But I love architecture. I'm very fascinated. I was lucky enough to meet, if you're American, you're probably very familiar with him, Tony Robbins. My life coach and my guru, my mentor in the UK, actually studied at the University of California and studied NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, became quite close friends with Tony Robbins. He obviously instilled in me the importance of Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and I've been fascinated with psychology, life coaching and self-improvement ever since. As a hobby, just like architecture, as a hobby, it's something that I like. I went to Barcelona just so I could see Gaudi's weird buildings, and the magic font, Font Magica, or whatever it's called, and the cathedral in Barcelona with the 5 fingers, and all around Rouen in France and places like that. I love it. I went to Abu Dhabi in Dubai because the architecture is fantastic. I was always proud as a British person with the funky, you've got the well-known Tower Bridge, not London Bridge, but Tower Bridge, the famous bridge in London. And now you've got the Shard, which is a stunning building, which is modern. I love old buildings and I love new buildings. I just know what I like. And I'm not an expert. I'm not an architect. I was very proud of the Gherkin, which is the famous gherkin-shaped office building in London. For you that are unfamiliar, it's kind of it's elliptical shaped. But that's the sort of shape that it is. And it's purely out of glass. And it was very controversial when it started, hence the nickname the Gherkin. But people have come to love it, and it's part of the London skyline now and very familiar. It's owned by Swiss Re, or certainly it was owned by Swiss Re, and it was commissioned by Swiss Re. I've been in that building. I've had a couple of investment meetings in there. Fantastic building. What do I mention it? Well, when I was in Dubai, I was walking down one of the high streets in Dubai. I walked everywhere. I was staying in the old town of Dubai, and I was walking towards the monorail station, and I could see the Gherkin in the distance, the Dubai version of the Gherkin. I thought, that's really good. And as I was nearing it in the monorail, I got off a station too early because I wanted to walk towards it. And as I was walking towards the Gherkin, I had to turn a corner and approach it from the side. And as I turned the corner and approached it to the side, instead of a solid building, it was 2 halves. So it looked like the Gherkin head on, and then from the side it was 2 buildings. But it sort of looked like that if I'm explaining it correctly. And it was amazing. I was amazed by the Landmark Hotel. It's lit up in different colours, and it looked nice and kind of quite Grecian during the day, but fantastic in the evening. The way it lit up in Dubai and all the changing colours, and it reminded me of a very important client of mine when I was managing their money. I used to manage the money for a society called the Institution of Lighting Engineers. And I always used to think, what's all that on about? What's so special about lighting? But of course, lighting is extremely important. I got fascinated with it, how different the Institution of Lighting Engineers are commissioned to give their advice and their guidance on how certain buildings and landmarks should be lit. Like Tower Bridge in London, like the Gherkin and stuff like that, like the famous bridges, the suspension bridges and all that lot, how they can be lit very well to accentuate their good points, hide their bad points, and also do it economically because of, drains on power and everything else. So that I've been interested in that. Well, what's that got to do with being an expat? Well, it doesn't have that much to do with being an expat. I'm just saying that, that's what I like. And if it's something that I'm passionate about, I'll talk about it. If you're in Bangkok, you'll see a lot of lights and everything else. If you walk down Walking Street in Pattaya, if you walk down nighttime with all the neon lights and everything else, you walk down Walking Street, it's all buzzing and everything else. Yeah, it's fantastic. You walk down Walking Street during the day, and it's just some grubby little shacky place with no character, no personality whatsoever. The same as what was called Walking Street. It's now called Red Street in Angela City. It's called Red Street because I think it better reflects the fact that when you come out of there, that's the colour of your bank balance. You went in with credit, you come out and your bank balance red, so you changed it to Red Street. Either that or it's famous with the communists. Chinese go in there. But during the day, Walking Street looks like a toilet. during the night it's all lit up and everything else. It applies to a lot of places. I left school and became a chef, so I was very much manual labour, blue collar. I then re-educated myself and went into finance. So why am I telling you that? What's it got to do about being an expat? Well, I think it is important because the vast amount of criticism or anger that I get directed at me online, either through my website or through YouTube now, is from older expats that are married or in long-term relationships with very young Asians. And they don't like it when I question the age gap. They don't like it. You really touch a nerve. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Everybody deserves to be happy. If you've got a poor girl in the province that hasn't really got a lot of future, and somebody comes along like, the Angel Gabriel, knight in shining armour, and takes her out of that misery, who am I to complain? Who am I to judge? I'm not at all. But likewise, I've just explained to you about how I used to be a chef and I went into finance. I've been around the world. I love architecture. I love NLP. I love psychology. I love self-improvement, life coaching. I've re-educated myself with regards to food and nutrition from studying food and nutrition as part of being a nutritionist and chef years ago. I'm studying college, being a sommelier, studying wine and everything else. Yeah, been there, seen it, done it, cooked in France, worked in hotels in the UK. I've done all of that, and then I went into finance. So I've said in the previous video, I went from cooking food to cooking the books. Yeah, my life completely changed. If you'd have asked me in my 20s, by the time you're mid-30s, you're going to be a high flyer, financial specialist, and you're going to be flying around the world advising clients, both on the personal and corporate basis. And you're going to be having clients in the UK, you're going to have clients in Europe, you're going to have clients in Asia. I'll be like, I talk a load of rubbish. I'm a chef. What are you talking about? Now, and when I got into finance, and they'll say, you know what, you're going to do really well for yourself, but you're not going to be working for this really successful company in Bristol anymore. You're going to have your own company. I'll be like, what? You talk a load of rubbish. That's never going to happen. And then if you'd have said to me, by the time you're 39, you're going to have retired. You're going to have sold up everything in the UK. You're going to be living in Asia and celebrating your 40th birthday in Asia and never looking back. I'd look at you and I'd say, you know what? Bollocks. Excuse my language, but it's absolute rubbish. I'm not saying that to blow smoke up my arse. What I'm doing is trying to instill on you, life changes. And the young man that I was when I was a qualified chef and food nutritionist and studying sommelier, silver service, working in hotels, etc., learning to cook under the Escoffier School in France and stuff. If you had told that young man that he would have been a financial specialist when he was 30, I'd have said, no way, not in a million years. It was the remotest thing. I always used to get jealous of people that were like the yuppies coming into hotel, like, Harry Enfield, loads of money. And they were spending more on champagne and fancy meals in one night than I earned in a month. And I thought they were a bunch of ignorant, arrogant assholes. But then I had a bit of an epiphany and I thought, actually, hang on a minute. Who's more of an asshole? Them or me? Because they're the ones with the money. They're the ones enjoying their life. And I'm here slogging my guts out, working 6 days a week, 18 hours a day as a chef. And anybody will tell you a chef is an extremely intense environment. As a chef, as a waiter, working in hotels. I ended up being a night manager of an hotel. It's extremely stressful. Yeah, it can be one big happy family, but it's long hours and it's pretty poor pay. So who's the fool, me or them? And that's what was the catalyst initially for me to change and go to study night school, study finance, and then study under like the London School of Economics and become a financial advisor. I had to do it stage by stage because I had no experience and I didn't have a private posh education. I had a comprehensive school education. And I'm West Country, and there is a lot of stigma in the city of London. People used to laugh and joke at me when I went to London. I went to a very posh investment dinner, and it was in Callard and Barrow Bar in Liverpool Street. And it was run by a famous investment house, Jupiter. And I was invited to go there, all expenses paid, got on the train. They sent me first class tickets, which if anybody knows who's British, it's damn expensive, at the last minute. But this insurance company, this investment company was paying Jupiter, and they paid for me to go there. And I went into the bar, and like this kind of like champagne reception and nibbles and stuff and canapes was all kicking off after the offices closed at 6 p.m. And I got there about 6 p.m. And no word of a lie, I had 5 or 6 people, women and men, gossiping behind me, laughing and joking because I had a West Country accent. And I heard, I bet he chews straw. And I heard, I wonder where he parked his tractor. And this was Jupiter. And at the time, one of the guys, the fund managers, came in with Neil Woodford, who was the very successful fund manager of Invesco Perpetual Income Fund. He went on to fund and start up Woodford investment funds, which didn't work out very well. But these are two really, really mega wealthy, very successful fund managers in London. And the Invesco Perpetual fund manager recognised me and came over and said hello to me and stuff. And then he introduced me to the group of people that were behind me. These were the people that were taking the piss, saying that I was like from the West Country and like a scarecrow, smoking my pipe and chewing on straw and driving a tractor. You ought to have seen their faces drop, because I was one of the biggest introducers to business to their company. And they must have been thinking inside them, oh shit. Because I looked at them with a complete look of disdain, up and down like that. And I thought, yeah, you're racist in a way that you are, better than me. And then I got, you know what? If I was black in a racist white environment, I got it. Then I knew, actually, hang on a minute. I'm not comparing myself between white and black and the racism, but I understood how uncomfortable it was, just like it is for women in a male-dominated environment, how uncomfortable and unwelcome I felt with all these snarly comments, because I come from the West Country, and they've got a strong West Country accent, and they're the snobby boys with the posh educations. But I ended up being just as successful as them, if not more so. So, and my attitude was, well, F you, mate, Anyway, don't know what they're doing now. Again, what's this got to do about being an expat? My life completely changed. When I was 21, I wasn't entirely happy, and I didn't know a lot. I didn't know as much as I knew when I was 30. By the time I was at 39, I was, leaving the UK and going and living in Asia. What was that important about being an expat? Well, it is when you're an elder expat. You'll see where the pieces gel together now. If you're 55, 60, 65 years old, and you're dating a woman who's in their 20s, she's going to be the same when she's 35. People don't know themselves. I know girls generally mature at a faster rate than guys. I'm not saying it's completely wrong, but come on. Nobody really knows in their 20s what they're going to be like when they're 30. Nobody knows when they're 30 what they're going to be like when they're 35 or 40. People learn a lot more. If you're an expat in 55 or 65, do you know more than a 20-something person? Of course you do. Look at your life experience. Look at what you've gone through. Look at your earnings capacity. Look at all of the things that you've learned from. Look at all the mistakes you've made. You learn from your mistakes. Look at all the successes you've had. And everything in between. It counts for a lot. Now, if you get involved with a partner in her 20s, she hasn't got any of that. And is it important? People, I think, they believe their own bullshit. They say it's not important. And they hear so many times from Asians, age is just a number. Age is just a number. It's all about love. It's all about, well, okay. If age is just a number and it's not relevant, I don't believe that. I think you believe in your own bullshit because you told yourself that so many times. But okay, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. What I will say, let's flick it over to finances. You're married, you're in your mid-50s or 60s, and you're married for love, and your partner's 25, and you're totally in love. Doesn't matter whether you've got kids or not. You're totally in love, husband and wife, Well, you're jointly and severally liable. So let's play a little game, shall we? Okay, you're totally in love. Age is just a number, so that means it's irrelevant. Age is irrelevant because she's just as mature, right? And she loves you to bits. And you're married, so you're equally and severally liable in a court of law, and one for the other. If you're sick, she's got the rights to turn off the machine. If she's sick, you've got the rights to turn off the machine. So marriage isn't just a bit of paper because spouses have got a lot of authority. But okay, she's in her 20s and you're in your 60s and you're happily married. Is everything joint? Ask yourself, is everything joint? Where's all your wealth? Doesn't matter if it's in the UK, Europe, offshore, America, doesn't matter. Where's all your wealth? Is it joint? Oh, I might have a pension stuff. Where's all your assets? Is it joint? Maybe you've got a house that's in her name in Philippines or Thailand or whatever because she's a local and she can earn land and stuff. What about all your investments? What about all your money? Is it joint? I tell you what, take a random number. Take like 2 million pesos or let's take 1 million peso. Yeah? 2 million peso. Doesn't matter. 20, 30, 40,000 US dollars. Stick it in an account, a joint account, because everything's going to be joint, yeah? Because you're husband and wife, so you've got to trust her. Now, it's all about love. So it's a relationship, it's not a dictatorship. You don't dictate to her, you've got a joint bank account, everything's joint, and you've got 2 million pesos or 2 million baht, 3 million baht in that joint account. You got a debit card, she's got a debit card, yeah? You both got PIN numbers, you can both spend willy-nilly. You can't tell her how to spend that money because you're not a dictator. You're not like Thomas the Tank Engine, the fat controller. You're not the banker, yeah? Because you're in a joint, equal relationship that's based on love and trust, yeah? So you've got a joint bank account with debit cards. You can't tell her, don't tell your friends and family about that money, it's a secret. You can't tell her not to lend that money to somebody or give it away. You can't tell her anything because then you're dictating to her the terms. No, you can't. She's got just as much equal rights as you, because that's what you're telling me. In which case, for every one person that this time next year, in 12 months' time, comes back to me and says, oh, look, Naked Expat, we did what you said, and we've still got the vast majority of our money there. For every one person that comes to me this time next year and proves to me that, I'll give you 10, 20, 100, where there isn't any money anymore. It's all gone because it's been lent out, spent. You know, you're getting Lazada and Shopee deliveries every single day of the week and you don't know why. It will go. Why? Because it's not a joint relationship, it's a dictatorship. I had somebody message me the other day saying, how dare you? I'm really happily married with my wife. She don't ask me for anything. I only give her an allowance of 10,000 peso a month. It took me 5 minutes before I stopped laughing because I'm like, hang on a minute. You're from the West, coming to the East. If you had a girlfriend in the West, would you give her an allowance? Well, you would if you were a sugar daddy, and your allowance would probably be $2,000, $3,000 a month, plus you might have to pay her rent on her apartment, because you're a sugar daddy. You're going out with a young, beautiful person, but you've got to give her something every month. Sugar daddy and she's a sugar babe. But it's thousands. Over here it's not. Oh, I'm happily married and everything. But you're giving her no allowance. An allowance? No, you're married. So, why? Because you don't want her to work, you don't want her to do anything. And some people have actually said to me, I'd rather have a young girlfriend, fiancé, wife, because I can mould her how I want. I'm like, hang on a minute, are you a Westerner coming over to Asia and you want to start a cult? You know, what's your middle name? Charles Manson, you know? Hang on a minute. You know, what's going on? You know, where did you grow up? Waco? I'm going to mould them. You know what I mean? It's just, that's ridiculous. Just like, I don't want her to work or do anything. Well, why not? Oh, because, you know, traditional values, she's going to bring up the children and stuff. Yeah, of course. If you have a wife and it's massively underrated as a role, you have a wife that's looking after the children, etc. Yeah, I'm a great believer in that traditional idea. It's quite old-fashioned, but it's valid. That the old saying was, behind every successful man, there's an equally successful woman, because the man is male-dominated. If you don't think it's still male-dominated, and you're a Westerner, just come over to the East, especially ladies, Western ladies. If any of you are watching this and you feel hard done by because the boardroom is still male-dominated, you've got a lot more opportunities, because they will actively discriminate in Asia. They would actually say, we want a male, or if it's like a service staff, we want a female, must be attractive, under the age of 21. You're discriminated from sex, you're discriminated from age, massive amounts of discrimination. The vast majority of senior positions in Asia are male, not female. It's really tough. There's a lot of discrimination. And in the past, very much behind every successful man, there's an equally successful woman. Well, how does that work? Well, in order for the man to be able to focus on his business and be the main breadwinner and go out there and be the mover and shaker and and get promotion and get promoted up the ladder, he's got to be dedicated to that company. So he needs a strong foundation at home, nurturing him. You don't want to come home to somebody nagging him, because that's just too much drama, too much pressure. So the woman can embrace the success of her man by helping him along the way and nurturing that. So that saying is very, very true. And a lot of men still take that out of context and think, well, okay, well, you know, be at home, be a homemaker and everything else. Yeah, totally get that in Asia. And the argument is, I don't want my wife to go out to work because I'll never see her. Because yeah, in Asia, you got to work 6 days a week in most instances, unless you've got a very good white collar job, you know, in a bank and stuff, where maybe you work Monday to Friday. You maybe have 2 days off a week. If you're very lucky, in most instances, you only get 1 day off a week. Sometimes it's 6 days on, 2 days off, 6 days on, 2 days off. Sometimes it's only 1 day off. Yayas and domestic helpers, they're lucky if they get 2 days off a month. And some of the hours in Asia are really long. They're not like 9 to 5 at all. They're more like 7 till 7 a lot of the time. And then you've got commute and traffic and everything else. It's hard. It's tough. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a drink because I'm talking a lot. This, if you look at one of my other videos, if you're a foreigner from the West coming to Asia, one of the best things you can do is make your own electrolyte drinks. What's that, you may ask? Well, if you sweat a lot, this is like a no sugar Gatorade, or in Asia, certainly in the Philippines, Pocari Sweat. Because when you sweat out a lot of minerals, a lot of body salt. Salt is sweaty, yeah? Take my word for it. So what's that? Well, that's water with some apple cider vinegar, potassium chloride, and Himalayan pink salt. Mix it together in a big carton like that, stick it in the refrigerator and have it cool. Fantastic. Don't worry about spending a fortune on electrolyte drinks. That's what you want. And that's all you need to replace. And it stops you from feeling dehydrated. It helps a lot if you've got diarrhea or dicky tummy. And one of the key things when people get fevers is they think that they got food poisoning. In Asia, a lot of the time it isn't food poisoning. In Asia, the vast majority of times, if you get a dodgy tummy, tummy ache, headaches, you feel sweaty and feverish, is if you haven't got dengue fever and been bitten by a dodgy mosquito, chances are it's drinking beer and getting dehydrated, or even if you don't drink, you're becoming dehydrated because you need to drink about 3 litres of liquid a day. And of that liquid, and you've got diarrhea as well, of that liquid, it's just water is better than nothing, but ideally with electrolytes, mineral salts. In Thailand, you can buy little packets at the pharmacy, yeah, for like 5-10 baht, and you can get and you can add it to water. But the cheapest way forever is potassium chloride, Himalayan pink salt, and apple cider vinegar. Otherwise, it's like drinking. If you just have the potassium chloride and the Himalayan pink salt in water, it's like drinking seawater. But with the apple cider vinegar, which is quite sort of acidic, it gives it a nice little edge to it. It's a bit like the feeling of having a lot of lemon juice or calamansi juice in the water as well, which you can also stick in. Just makes it more palatable. It's a great tip for you. I've got a video all about it, so do check it out. The other thing is, a lot of people get bad tummies through having the air conditioning too low. A lot of foreigners, you get really hot. Of course, it's nice to walk into a bedroom, it's freezing cold. And they got it fixed on like 16, 17, 18. It's way too cold. It's really bad for you. You can actually die from it because you can get pneumonia. You can get water on the lung. It's not very good. Air conditioning is terrible for your health. Best thing you can do whilst acclimatizing is have your air conditioner on for a little bit just to chill the room, and then if you possibly can, with a meshed open window, just try and sleep with a fan, yeah? If you possibly can. That moves me on to another thing. I'm going to do a video about this, but other people mentioned to me years ago, on my website they mentioned to it, I'm at a YouTube channel for very long, this comes on to, how do you sleep well at night? Air conditioning or fan? Try and sleep with a fan if possible. Some people, especially in Philippines, how do you sleep well? I don't sleep very well. I will get really, really hot and everything else. Now, one thing I noticed in the Philippines, more so than in Thailand, where there's a little bit more availability on like the international products, like things like beds and things like that. One thing that a lot of people do where they make a mistake in the Philippines is they buy a nice bed and they have a foam mattress. There's a really big company that's probably the largest all throughout the Philippines called Mandui Foam, and they make a lot of the foam mattresses. And The problem with foam mattresses is you get hot spots. Most people lie on their side when they go to sleep, or they lie on your back if you're drunk, and you get hot spots. So wherever your body's touching the foam mattress, you'll get hot spots. And if you don't move for a long period of time, that's where people get bed sores, in hospitals. But you lie down like this and you get hot spots where your body is touching the mattress, even if you've got a bed sheet on, or you're lying on your back and it's basically your coccyx and your buttock. You've got your back normally arches and then the back of your shoulders, and you get hot and it builds up. And the problem with foam mattresses is you get hotter and hotter and hotter, because foam, like a sponge, absorbs the heat, but it doesn't dissipate the heat. So if you've got the money and you're becoming an expat and you're going to live somewhere for any particular period of time, or extended period of time, beg your pardon, then absolute good tip. It is not about how expensive the bed base is. It's about how expensive and the quality of your mattress. Always, 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 if you possibly can, buy a spring mattress. It's going to cost you. My mattress in my bed is a super king size bed, and it's a mahogany bed that I bought in the Ideal Home in SM. Not in SM, but in a store that's within SM. And the bed was made in Malaysia. It's a beautiful, solid mahogany bed, super king size. The mattress, the bed was 50,000 peso. The mattress was 60,000 peso. It comes from Sweden. It's a sprung mattress, and it's beautiful. And the beauty of sprung mattresses is you've got all that airflow, so you don't get hot spots. And don't make the mistake of some expensive mattresses come with a foam mattress topper, so it feels like you're sleeping on a marshmallow. That defeats the purpose, because you're basically got a foam layer on top of your beautiful sprung mattress. No. Best case scenario, just have a sprung mattress. You got all of that airflow. Fantastic tip. You'll have a really good night's sleep then. Really do, if you possibly can, ignore foam mattresses. The only caveat to that is gel foam. If you've got a memory foam made out of this special cool gel. Now they're expensive. I've got one of those and they do work. The Cool Zone gel mattress topper that I've got was 12,000 peso just for the topper. And that was a 2-inch one. You can get a 3-inch one. And it's made out of this special cool gel rather than just foam. And it does work. Again, that helps to dissipate the heat. So that's a really good tip. Not talking about the air conditioning so much, or the fan so much. Don't have the air conditioning too low. The key thing is what you're lying in bed in. The best way you can have a good night's sleep is with thin sheets and with a sprung mattress, not a foam mattress. Good tip. Finally, I'll wrap up today's little monologue. Somebody else asked me, I've been riding big bikes and small bikes all around the Philippines. I've travelled all around the Philippines on big bikes. I've had an older style, year 2000, 1999 Honda Valkyrie, which was 6-cylinder, 6 carburetor, old school, beautiful bike. I had the newer version as well, to 2016, 2017 Honda Valkyrie. That was 6-cylinder, 1800cc fuel injection. That was great. Real kind of muscle cruiser tourer. The Honda Valkyries have got mid controls, not forward controls. If you're a taller person, you want a big bike, which is really reliable, but you don't want the sheer weight and size of something like a Harley Davidson or some of the big Indians and stuff. A really good sweet spot, very, very popular, really reliable, and brilliant value for money in the Philippines, because some of the parts are made in the Philippines, so they got lower import tax, is the Kawasaki Vulcan S 650. It's a great, fantastic bike. It revs a little bit high, so if you're doing a lot of expressway cruising, it does rev around about the 5,000 mark, but it's a parallel twin, liquid cooled, goes like an absolute rocket. I took mine up to like 175 kph. No, I didn't take it up to 175 kph, but maybe I did, maybe I didn't. It's fantastic. Can't keep up with a really big, powerful cylinder bike. Of course it can, but it can almost keep up, but you're revving high. As general rule of thumb, fantastic bike, very nimble, quite lightweight as a cruiser, with forward controls. And the good thing about the kind of ergo fit with the Kawasaki Vulcan is that if you've got short legs, you can have short forward controls, medium forward controls. Well, me, I'm 6'3", so I could have. It was very comfortable for me sitting down forward controls, having the ergo fit extension on the pegs. Absolutely fantastic, real no-brainer. So that's for like a mid capacity. Great bike. Larger bikes, at the moment I drive a 1200cc Aprilia, which is a bit like a Ducati, and it's more of a, it's very similar to a multi-strada. It goes like an absolute rocket. It's only 1200cc. The damn thing is just, it's called a Aprilia Dorsoduro. In Italian, Dorsoduro means hooligan. And boy, did they name that bike right. I mean, it's insane. It's the most fun I've ever had. But anyway, a lot of people, I digress, a lot of people ask about normal sort of scooters. And the most popular two that come up, apart from, so you got the Aerox, you've got the Yamaha NMAX, and you've got the Honda PCX. Now, I had number 004 PCX. I had one of the original PCXs out of the first tranche of 10 that were built in Thailand. They originally came out in a 125 configuration. I had the fourth one that was ever made. And just from pure luck, and went down to Honda dealership in Pattaya, and I was one of the first owners. And the PCX 125 was great. It then, after about a year, was superseded by the PCX 150. Now, the 150 was really thirsty, and it was a gas guzzler. The 160, as they are now, is far more economical. They've got the balance right. It's got more CC, but it's far more economical. The 160 is far more economical than the 150 ever was. The 150 was really thirsty. The 125s were great for what they were, but people, generally want a bit more power. It's a medium-sized moped scooter type, and they're fantastic. Now, some people, a lot of people ask about, I want to buy a motorbike for the Philippines. I don't know whether to get a cheap little Honda TMX, a bit like the ones that were attached to the tricycles, or they want a PCX, or they want an NMAX and stuff. I've ridden bikes for many, many years here, and all different types of bikes. I was involved with a business and rode virtually, you name the bike, and I've ridden it. I was also a member of an MC. And with motorcycles, a lot of it is down to personal preference and what you like. But generally speaking, the first question I always ask on Facebook and on social media when people say that, everyone talks about, this is that and everything else. I'm like, how tall are you? Because fundamentally, that dictates everything. Now, I'm 6'3", so I'm quite tall. But for anybody that's nearing 6 foot or 6 foot plus, which is quite common nowadays for us guys, definitely the Honda PCX has got the widest, roomiest cockpit. The NMAX, you feel like your knees are slightly closer to the handlebars. So if you're tall, you're 6 foot plus, PCX is an absolute no-brainer, and you'll never regret the day you bought it. The only option, the only question you got is, do you take off the rear panel and put a back box on? Really handy, really useful to have a back box on it. It's fantastic. Don't bother with all of the aftermarket crap, all the levers and everything else like that. It's all rubbish, it's all junk, it all breaks. Stick with OEM, regularly service it every 6 months, change the oil, check the timing belt on it, because it's basically rubber band power. Get all that checked out, and it will outlive you. It's fantastic. The NMAX, the Yamaha competition, the NMAX is only a 155, not a 160 like the PCX. So you think the PCX is faster? No way. The Yamaha NMAX is considerably quicker as a 155 than the 160 PCX, especially if you mess around with the baffles. Don't go too crazy with it and have just a complete open exhaust. It's just too loud. Gets on your nerves after a while, and you need a little bit of back pressure just to, if you're riding it hard and a bit of engine braking and stuff, you want a bit of back pressure there. So don't get too crazy with open pipes, certainly not on a scooter, but you can sort of tune it a little bit and make it breathe a little bit easier. In which case, the NMAX will fly past a PCX, which is surprising because it's a 155 rather than a 160. But as always, with a lot of Yamahas and Hondas are tuned for the balance between reliability and economy, and Yamahas are more tuned towards performance. Yamahas do generally run hotter than Hondas. Certainly in my experience, and I've ridden a lot of bikes, and Hondas definitely aren't going to shoot the lights out, with the only exception of maybe the Fireblade, which is an absolute rocket. It's a spaceship of a motorcycle. But that's like, people riding around on these big BMW GS adventure bikes that are just way too big for them. Total overkill for the Philippines. But then they compare that with like a BMW RR. It's like, well, hang on a minute, they're totally different. So as far as scooters are concerned, 155 NMAX, if you want absolute brute power, they're fantastic. They are reliable, but they do run hotter than the Honda. You want something that's going to outlive you, Honda PCX. And if you're taller, the cockpit and legroom on a PCX is better than the NMAX. So if you're a tall guy, easy peasy, buy a PCX. If you're not so tall, up to you whether you buy the Yamaha NMAX or the Honda PCX. You want the performance, go down the Yamaha route. You want the reliability, go down the Honda PCX route. That's it. You don't have to worry about any other bikes. So that's my opinion with regards to Yamaha and Honda PCX. Just my opinion with my experience riding around the Philippines. Entirely up to you. I'm sure if you book either one of those, you're going to be very, very happy. That'll do for my monologue for today. I hope you found some of it of interest to you. Until next time, if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do, and hit the notification bell. It does help my channel. And good luck. Enjoy.